Welcome to Hort Culture, where a group of extension professionals and plant people talk about the business, production, and joy of planting seeds and helping them grow. Join us as we explore the culture of horticulture. Welcome. Hello. I will tell you right up front, I'm feeling a bit like the weather today that in Kentucky, which is chaotic. So just
unstable.
Unstable. It's pretty regular.
If you're Pooh Bear, it's a little blustery out there.
Look at that. That was precious. I was going dark with it, but that's pretty
I'm trying to bring it back to the 100-acre woods real quick.
To the light. Bring it back to the light.
Oh, bother.
Well, we have plenty of light and sunshine today because we have the Dr. Jonathan Larson on with us today, who has been a guest of ours before and is in the entomology department here at the University of Kentucky and has his own podcast. So, he's kind of great at this. So, hey, Jonathan, what's up?
Pump the brakes. I don't want that kind of expectation.
You really raised the bar on the expectations, Jonathan.
Thank you for having me, though. I appreciate it. This is fun.
If I put it all on you, then I'm not expected to do as much. So really, that's the way this is going. Yeah,
yes, that's the extension way. That's the
transparency.
Motto.
Transparency is key.
Wow, called out on my own show. So
when you're an agent and you get in trouble, you blame it on the specialist, and your specialist, you blame it on the agent. That's the circle of life right there.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Snake eating itself.
But the grower's never actually on the email chain, so they're like, I'm not sure who's in trouble here.
Nobody's answering me.
Yeah. I wasn't even really that mad about this.
I just wanted to know what the results were. It's not that big a deal. But anyway, so we are talking about bugs today because, Jonathan, entomology, it's kind of a whole thing. But some very specific ones that we are getting a lot of calls about right now, which is cicadas. And so, yeah, that's been an interesting ride. I don't know. I've emailed you at least once about people are freaking out. Do they need to freak out? What's the deal?
Generally speaking, we probably don't ever really need to freak out, right? We could probably be pretty copacetic about most things. With periodical cicadas, it does get presented as a plague. I've done a lot of media on this, and it seems like about 2 minutes into every single one of them, they're like, the cicada apocalypse and Dr. Jonathan Larson, this cicada with Jonathan Larson. I'm like, I don't endorse this. This is not how I feel.
The words I would use.
Yeah, that's not my feeling.
Is it not the tone we're going for? Okay,
yeah.
Check that out.
If you ever want to go in a different direction, you could look into being a monster truck announcer.
Oh, thank you.
Good. That's impressive. That is impressive.
Cicada apocalypse takes on.
Look at your children.
So good.
Suck them dry.
So good.
You mentioned you've been doing a lot of press, and just before we jump into the meat of the content, I mean, it's been a little far flung, and I learned something when we were chatting earlier. But where are all the places, just the ones that come to your mind that you've been talking about cicadas?
I've done a lot of the Kentucky media, so just about every CBS and NBC station, several newspapers in the state. I've done several Ohio media places. I've done San Francisco radio shows about it. I did UK, not Kentucky, University of Kentucky, but UK, United Kingdom, with tea and crumpets and everything. It was a soccer show, and they were like, we'd love to talk to you about cicadas. And I was like, why? I really don't understand. Yeah, I was genuinely concerned that they saw UK after my name, and they were like, oh, yeah, a local. And
you got a funny accent.
Oh, it's from Birmingham. So I did that one, and then I've done a couple of NPR interviews and a CBS News interview, and I was on CNN about cicadas.
And now you make it to the big time.
It was all preparing me
and
for
all of that,
culture.
yes, brought us now.
Yeah, I heard one of your NPR. Somebody sent me one of your NPR featured things, and so I thought that was really cool to see a UK person chatting out there with the silk voiced.
I consider it the big league.
Curious mind.
I love it.
Your thoughts?
It's been wild. Even one of them kind of asked me, they're like, how did you get involved in this? I was like, I have no idea.
These agents.
I talked about cicadas in 2021 when we had Brood X emerge, but I just did maybe 10 or 12 different things there. And I don't know if it's just the easiest thing to Google or if the real cicada experts aren't answering their phone. Yeah, I've been getting all of these inquiries. I have a sneaking suspicion it's because I'm willing to say teenage bugs are having sex in your trees, and that's the headline that they go with.
Nice.
And things like that. Yeah.
Engagement driving content.
That's right. I'm a little weird, and so I think sometimes they enjoy that.
We love. You should just tell
It's
them
the
that
people going.
you emerge several months before the cicadas do every time.
Yeah, he molts and
I've
then
already put in
You guys tell
hibernation.
me. You're gonna have to catch me up on what happens since then.
I claw my way from below ground, where I've been feeding on tree sap for the last 17 years. Yes.
Relatable.
Right, same.
Shed my skin. Yeah, I mean, it's like Monday morning.
multiple Mondays.
Oh,
So was it for everybody who doesn't know, San Francisco and the United Kingdom do not have cicadas. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we're talking about periodical cicadas. That's the big news, the big emergence that's happening this year. These are a very specific set of species that only exist in Eastern North America. They're 13 or 17-year species. We have 3 17-year species and 4 13-year ones, and both of them are coming out this summer. They don't exist in the UK. They don't exist in California. It really is localized in the Eastern continental United States.
So is it? I guess they're just really interested in our bugs. Like, I'm just.
It's it is weird. I often say this is a huge insect Mardi Gras. Like, this is one of those things that David Attenborough should narrate. Like, it's something that you can only experience every so often. It's something that only exists here. So think of all the unique natural phenomena of other continents. We're all fascinated with it. So I think that it's just the fact that billions of insects are going to claw themselves free of the earth prisons that they've been in, and they're going to take to the trees and scream for a few weeks and mate, and they'll all die in this huge sort of macabre Mardi Gras. There's not really any other way to put it.
See, I think Snoop Dogg needs to be narrating that one in particular.
Also, I could live with that for sure.
Or just a voiceover with David Attenborough as the original. I mean, I would take either.
I would put them in a room together and let them do it as a duo.
Better.
Yeah,
a collaboration.
Somebody for 17, somebody for the 13.
That's right.
They could have like a battle. Yeah,
I'm sure David Attenborough has a rap battle just in his back pocket. Yeah.
Oh, he does. He does in a British accent, no less. So
Mad rhymes. Yeah.
yeah. That's one up. You can't trump that. So what does that look like as far as with this unique situation where there's kind of multiple broods going on or whatever? How's that different than a normal year where it may only be one?
So this year is being billed as the double brood emergence. Double broods aren't necessarily ultra rare. I would say that they happen every so often. I think the most recent one was in 2015. But they're usually pretty small. You'll see them like in New York State and down in Mississippi. It's not this huge convergence like we have this year. The geographic spread is what has captivated most people with this. So we have Brood 19, which is the Great Southern Brood, which is going to be emerging across most of the southeastern United States. And then we have Brood 13, which is the Northern Illinois Brood, coming out in Illinois, southern Wisconsin, parts of Iowa, parts of Indiana, and maybe parts of Michigan. It's not quite clear if it's still there or not. And so that's just, that's a big part of the country that's going to have bugs coming out. And when it's billed, it's sort of like, every city, every county, every yard, they're just going to come out and, there won't be anything left. But it's really localized. Here in Kentucky, for example, the last time Brood 19 came out, we only had 3 counties that reported emergences. That doesn't mean they don't exist outside of Allen, Caldwell, and Trigg counties. I should throw Christian in there, 4 counties. They probably are in other counties. And in fact, I've already had some reports trickle in from Davies County and from McCracken, where people have seen shells. So it's not everywhere. It's not in every yard. You usually need to have some long-lived trees that are there that have been around for a while. Oaks are preferred. And also they like kind of river corridors areas. So there's a lot of those in Kentucky. So they do have their pick of the litter kind of, but it's not going to be all over the place.
Well, I can honestly say this year I have heard, I don't know what it is, if it's the TikTok generation, whichever brood that is, or what, but I have never heard, but that makes sense what you're saying since we have northern and southern going on. So just geography is involved in the fervor of just, and the media churn that's going on right now with this. I've never heard so much about cicadas as I have this year.
Yeah. Brood X, when it came out in 2021, we were coming out of a lot of lockdowns. People were getting vaccinated, and I remember doing media about people who they were upset. They were like, "My whole summer is ruined because I was going to go see my friends now that I've been vaccinated, and now there's bugs everywhere. You're telling me that all these insects are coming out. There was a lot of media coverage then because it was pretty widespread. But yeah, this year it started in January. Like people started amping this up all over the place. And I remember I got my first call and I was like, oh, yeah, I'll talk about periodical cicadas. And then I started Googling and I was like, oh, there's like a whole thing. Unlike what people believe, like I don't have this programmed into my Google calendar, like the cicadas, like,
I've been telling people that you do, though.
I mean,
like, yeah, Jonathan, he's got a
entomologist you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are people building bunkers, or when they call you, or what are they doing in preparation? Or maybe the proper question is, what are you telling them to do in preparation?
Yeah, like how deep should my bunker be?
Yes, how deep in the ground?
30 feet. We work in 10s, yeah. So
okay.
I would start at 30
even
feet.
numbers, yeah. Just nice round numbers.
Some Vault Tech rations, that'll help.
I like it. A Fallout reference. I'm on board with that. Some Pip Boy.
Yeah, your Pip Boy.
Yeah.
People have had a lot of questions that have revolved around, what is going to happen to my garden? What's going to happen to my trees? And for the most part, we just try to kind of talk people off the ledge. These are not what we would consider primary pests for the most part. I think part of this is down to the fact that here in the United States, we have this weird etymology collision with cicadas, where a lot of people refer to them as locusts. Locusts are biblical plague, and locusts are not cicadas. Locusts are grasshoppers. They're super aggro grasshoppers who have been exposed to too many other grasshoppers, and they've rubbed up against each other too much. And so they go through this extra molt and they change color, and they pretty much are like, I have to eat everything and mate with everything, and we are going to destroy things.
Wow.
So,
cool.
like Florida
Savage.
fans, when they come to town for the football game and stuff, they're very destructive. We used to have.
I was going to say, that sounds like people I know.
Like Orlando.
Josh grew up in Florida, so
Sounds like an old Garth Brooks concert to me.
There we
I'm
go.
just saying.
That's even a better. So locusts are grasshoppers. They're not cicadas at all. But what we think happened was this weird situation where the colonizers that came from England, specifically from the UK, they only have one species of annual cicada on the island there. And we think that some of the early ones may have actually sort of landed in a cicada emergence. And the only sort of frame of reference that they had for this was biblical locust swarms. So that's kind of rung down through the ages where people still call these locusts, but they don't behave like locusts. They're not interested in feeding very much. So they're not going to attack garden crops. They're not going to bother corn or soybeans, these big agri-seeds that we have in the state. Those things are not going to have any worries. They may climb up them and pull themselves out of their nymphal exoskeleton, but they don't bite them. We do have some issues that pop up with young trees. So if you've put a new oak tree, a new lilac, a few different plants in your landscape, they will land on those and occasionally lay their eggs in them. Fruit trees are also susceptible to this. So apple trees and others, they'll land on the smaller twigs. The female has this sword-shaped ovipositor. So it's this egg-laying device that she cuts a slit in the thinner barked twigs. And then she lays about 24 eggs inside of this slit. They look like really thin grains of rice. I've snapped a few open. I watched a guy eat some of them once.
Oh,
They were very sweet. And
Nice.
then
Sold.
sugar content. Pure raw. It was very dangerous.
Wow. Rocky style.
Salmonella. Yeah. So when they do that, if you get enough females doing that, it will cause kind of this overload, and the stick will flag. So it'll start to fall out of the tree and turn brown. On a big tree, you can have thousands of these and it's fine. It'll just grow right through it. But on a new tree or a fruit tree, that's pretty problematic. So in those instances, we teach people about wrapping the tree. You get cicada netting, which can be expensive. And then we sort of wrap it around the tree, kind of like a lollipop. You engulf the entire canopy, and then you go way down on the bottom of the trunk and wrap it and secure it to the tree. And then you leave it there until about the end of June. And it goes on when you first hear the male cicadas start to sing.
And how many total weeks are we talking about here from emergence to the time that they go away?
In terms of Kentucky, it's already started. So I've gotten these reports from out west. Some extension agents, Kelly Jackson, shout out if he listens to your show. He was the first to report to me in Hopkinsville in Christian County that will never make sense to me. But, that he was seeing some, and they were sort of staging themselves. He found them below some pavers, and then he sent me some emergence videos. So it's already started, and it started last week. So we'll probably see it end maybe the penultimate week of June. Maybe they'll keep going until the end of June, but usually it's just about a 2-month window that they're out and about.
I was actually really looking forward to someone being able to join me for screaming outside. So I'm kind of sad that they're not really going to be super localized in Central Kentucky.
Can you not fill in for them? Can you not?
I mean, I was already planning on doing it. I wanted to acquire, right?
Can I hear your cicada call?
No, I will kill everybody's ears. If
she needs a special microphone for that.
Cicada impression contest? I don't know. Maybe
there's just a lot of rage that I have to have, and usually that means it's the end of the day. So.
You've been underground for a while, so I get it. I mean, you're trying to channel that many years of darkness. So.
But see, you're framing it as like a scream, but for them, it's more like a love song.
Yes, that's true.
Which you're telling me cicadas are like metalheads.
Yeah,
kind of. Their love songs are right. Love, yeah,
they're kind of mechanical and grindy.
Death metal.
Yeah, it does fit the metal,
industrial, right?
I mean, let's also talk. They're black in color with bright red eyes. Pretty metal.
Nice.
It's giving metal.
Totally.
Sometimes they get infected with an STD fungus that causes their butt to fall off. Pretty metal.
Okay, expand.
That's pretty hard. That just took a turn, but
let's go.
Yeah,
with it.
Everything I need right
it's
now.
laughing my butt off, but
yeah, it's a different kind of laughing.
Screaming your butt off.
It's the only thing that specializes on periodical cicadas. So one of the other things we get asked about a lot is why do they do this every 13 or 17 years? And the leading sort of theory is this has prevented any predator or parasitoid from explicitly only using periodical cicada as a food source or a host for their eggs. The cicada killer wasp doesn't use periodical cicadas. They only use annual cicadas. So there's nothing that uses them specifically except for this fungus. I don't know a ton about it. Apparently, a lot of the research is being done in West Virginia, which I love. I'm hopeful to talk to them more about it sometime. But essentially, it's this fungus that lives in the soil where they spend 13 or 17 years. So it's easy to see how they could contract it. It gets inside of their body, and then it turns the inside of their abdomen white and chalky. And eventually it falls off. And you'll see these kind of scattered throughout the landscape. And the males, when they mate, they can pass it to the female, who can then possibly accidentally get it on her eggs, sort of automatically infecting her future nymphs. Or when they crawl down the tree, they can be exposed to spores. Or when they burrow down into the ground, they can get exposed to them. But it doesn't really get activated until they come out as adults. And then we see it wipe out some of them. It's the only thing of its kind. It hasn't crossed into humans. That was another question I got earlier, is if this was the setup to The Last of Us. But no, I don't think that's going to happen.
John, my butt just fell off. Do you think this is cicada related?
That's really a doctor.
Is this because I've been eating cicadas?
He's not that kind of doctor.
It's bug doctor, not butt doctor. Sorry.
Yeah, don't easily confused. Easily confused.
Well, so could you? We kind of talked about it in different fits and starts, but could you sort of verbally draw a diagram of kind of what happens as far as the steps in the process of emerge? So I'm guessing, because I was thinking about the laying the eggs. So the female has theoretically gone out, mated, then moved somewhere to lay her eggs. Or what is it? What's that kind of relative timeline and the places where all the action's happening?
So what happens is they start to come out of the ground usually at night. It happens when the ground temperature, I think 6 inches deep or 4 inches deep, is around 68 degrees, which happens to coincide usually with the local blooming of irises. So when irises are in full bloom, that's when most of the cicadas start to emerge. They kind of stage themselves. They'll be under logs and paver stones and rocks and all kinds of things in the landscape. They'll make a little chimney to kind of hide in until they come out. And they usually do it at night because they don't want to get eaten. It takes them some time to shed their last exoskeleton as a nymph and pull themselves out as an adult, and they have to dry their wings. When they first come out, they're stark white with these kind of black eyebrows. They look like Groucho Marx, and they have bright red eyes. There's a local myth in Kentucky and maybe a couple of other states that the Department of Entomology will pay you $20 per albino cicada, and people will collect these newly molted ones, and they'll try to bring them to us. Usually by the time they do, they've already melanized and hardened, so they're no longer white, and they're
Joke's
very
on you.
disappointed. Yeah, exactly. Or we field calls and explain that that's just an urban legend. But they do that.
Feels like it could be like part of a hazing ritual that the newest,
go get a snipe.
newest specialist has to. Yeah,
It's not snipe hunting, it's albino cicada hunting.
Yeah.
So that's usually happening at the end of April, the beginning of May. Then the males that have done this, they take to the trees, and they will start flying up into the tops of large trees, and they start singing. They sing individually at first. It's a call to the other males. They're like, "Yo, dudes, this is the best tree, man.
Dudes rock.
Dudes, yeah."
Bros for life.
And the males will either, listen and come over, or they'll go to their own tree. Once they get all together, then they start to chorus. They synchronize their song and they amplify it. And this is when they get as loud as a jet engine. And they're basically playing love songs, like was said before. They're trying to attract females to the tree. And so when the females start to show up, they'll pair off and begin to sing a courtship song. And so this is, a special song for her. I assume it's like Wonderwall or something of that effect.
Yeah, some Coldplay.
Just the favorite guitar guy song.
Something a little like unplugged.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Acoustic.
She doesn't sing, so she's not able to make the same noises as the male. She only can click her wings and make this. It's not really audible to us as much as it is to them. That says, I accept. We can mate. And then when they mate, he usually dies. That's all that he has the energy for. He finishes and then collapses dead. And then she will flit around and lay eggs in trees. And this will go for a couple of weeks with different females. They come out in stages. So we get some that come out in the first couple weeks, and then kind of another couple weeks until we get to the end. And this is part of a strategy we call predator satiation, where the early ones, many of them get eaten by turkeys and squirrels and dogs and people and everything under the sun. And then everything gets sick of them and says, I don't want to eat any more cicadas. And that means the ones that come out later on, they have a better chance of passing on their genes to the next generation. And then once the females are done laying their eggs over a few days, they also perish. You have these big piles of dead cicadas everywhere that return a lot of nutrients to the soil and fertilize the area or are scavenged. It's a huge protein surge. It actually impacts local fauna for a couple of years afterwards, where you'll see these surges in wild turkey populations and squirrels. It's kind of like a mass year for acorns in some ways.
I feel like they seem really smart.
Okay. Tell me more about that.
I mean, the whole idea of like, number one, there's this whole like 13, 17 year thing so that there's not, predators really focused on them. Interesting. What is the way they have,
why not 14 years? Yeah.
Right. How'd they get to this point? And then not only do they do that, but then they stage their exit so that like the first ones, thanks for your service. Goodbye.
Right. The red shirts.
Somebody with
the red shirts on Star Trek.
Maybe it's just that I don't know a lot. I mean, I'm a plant person, so I don't know a ton about, I know seeds can kind of do this and they last for years in the soil and they can emerge when the timing is right. But that seems such more like a physical thing, where what you're talking about to me in my brain is like smart, and it freaks me out in a cool way.
Or sing.
And how does that biological clock work? Is it just a maturity?
Okay. So I can try to address all that. Like when people like me talk about this stuff, I want to get people amped about it. So I do sometimes lend some, directionality to what they're doing. And it's not intentional, right? Like they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
They just are genetically programmed essentially to emerge at a set time and in a certain wave, essentially. So some of the ones that come out early clearly survive because genetically that's still present. Otherwise, they would all get eaten out and disappear and die. As for the 13 or 17 year thing, the way that they know the time has passed is that they're down below ground feeding on tree roots as nymphs, and they can essentially log the passage of time through the movement of sap below ground and above ground. So in the winter months when their food source ebbs, they can this just sort of it's logged. It's not like they scratch it into the wall.
Lies.
Right.
It's more of after a certain number of times of experiencing this, their body is primed to say, okay, now go up. Like, we got to go up.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get obsessed. It's what, taxokinesis, right? Or something to that effect, where they want to get as high up as they can and pull themselves out of that last exoskeleton. It's just a cue that then sets into motion a machine in their body that sends them up to become adults. They do miscount. That was alluded to before. Like, why not 14? We believe that the prime numbers are the way that they are because it cuts down on the double broods. This only happens every couple hundred years like this. So they're not all together. It's just going to help with that, and it helps with the predator specialization that I mentioned before. They do sometimes come out a year early, and sometimes they can come out a year to 4 years late. So we sometimes have 13-year cicadas that accidentally become 17-year cicadas. I know that here in Fayette County, I had early risers from Brood X in 2020. I had a few come out in my yard, and then I had stragglers that came out the next year. I sent all that data to Cicada Safari, I should say, which is
Cicada Mania is a band, totally.
Cicada Mania is a website that's been around since the early internet. They're very famous for all of the data they've collected on periodical cicadas. They don't have the app, though. Cicada Safari is from a different group, I believe. But you can send in pictures and geotags. It's like iNaturalist, except a little more specialized. So you can help to perform some citizen science and help us know where cicadas are. This is all important this year in Kentucky because I said we have Brood 19 coming out in Western Kentucky, the Purchase, Penny Ryle kind of areas. We're supposed to have Brood 14 next year, which is a 17-year brood. I apologize for all the numerals that I keep throwing out, but they are going to emerge next year across a lot of Kentucky. Everywhere west or east, essentially, of the Penny Ryle region. A lot of counties are expected to have emergences. They could come out this year. They could come out a year early, make a mistake, and show up. And I'm worried about people sort of conflating them with the 13-year cicadas that are coming out west. We can tell the difference. We can identify between them if they're 13 or 17 year by looking at their tummies. There'll be different colors of orange and black down there. We can also listen to their song. But that's something that I've been intrigued by, this fact that we're going to have this huge emergence next year in Kentucky, and it could sort of start to happen this year, and people might be confused. And that's one of the things that's been hard to communicate when we have Eastern agents asking about this, because, you know, in Bourbon County, they may, well, I heard about all these cicadas, and I say, oh, it's not going to happen there. But then I have to throw this caveat in of like, well, I mean, sort of like maybe like a few. Yeah, you could have the ones that are bad at math that come out this year.
A few. Yeah. I always see like the random few. Yeah. And but next year that's the one that here in Central Kentucky, like my folks should worry about or think about and be aware of. Gotcha.
Yes, absolutely. That's the one that's going to. I'm thinking about pushing really hard over the next year. So some of the broods have common names, so you don't have to say Brood XIII or whatever. Right. So like we have the Great Southern Brood, the Great Eastern Brood, the Northern Illinois Brood. I really want to call Brood 14 the Kentucky Brood or the Bluegrass Brood or the Bourbon Brood or something, because it is kind of centralized in our state. I would really like to have it sort of be Kentucky centric, and maybe I'll work with like the Kentucky Tourism Board or something. We can figure out how to get people
proud.
Yeah, exactly. Put that sticker right on the side.
Proud of everything.
No, it's Brood, Alexis.
Oh,
Kentucky Proud. Oh, proud. Oh, like the marketing campaign.
Yeah.
You know that thing.
Yes.
It's kind of cool around
here.
Yeah,
that could be cool. I mean, yeah. You got contacts at CNN, so I mean, it's time to go wide with this thing.
Dear CNN.
Dear CNN, we would like to market our brood.
I was the guy with the housefly tie on.
They might just remember that.
Do you save that one for special occasions, or?
I do like to teach in that one. It's
for
very bold. It's
occasions.
Silver with black flies, huge flies on it. I have a big insect tie collection. I ask for them for every Christmas.
I love that. The only professor I remember having that had interesting ties was actually a soil scientist, and so you would think, it would be something related to that, and it was like manatees or something.
Nice.
And dolphins.
Okay.
Josh and I had that class together. I don't
Sea
know if you
creatures.
remember,
Yeah, I was gonna
Josh.
say that sounds like a coin move.
Yeah, and so it was strange, but
The opposite of soil,
it's
frankly.
right. He was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
"How far away from this can I possibly be?" So, since we will be dealing with this next year, have you heard anything interesting about like these mounds of dead bugs that we're gonna do? Like, what are people doing with them? Like, is it like jumping in
Like,
them
how
like
many
leaves?
can I
Like,
eat in one sitting?
I will tackle both of these questions separately. If they're dead on the ground, I would not encourage eating them necessarily. I mean, you could give it a go, but
Would you discourage me? Like, don't eat that.
there
can I
are
watch?
some cicada best practices trainings we can do.
We actually, you joke, but we have written that. That is out there. So when you have big piles of dead ones, usually you can just kind of leave them. They're just like piles of leaves, unless they're on top of something that you're worried about, like turf that needs to live and thrive and survive. You can kind of leave them there, and they'll powderize and be nutrients for the soil. They'll just become fertilizer, essentially. And and other things will go through and eat them and decompose them, so you don't have to worry about them as much. But you can sometimes end up scooping them up with snow shovels. I have seen that done before, especially when they're on paths, because we have created slip and fall scenarios where the bug guts are kind of so thick, people will slip and slide around.
That is metal.
Slip on my decaying body.
Heavy riff.
The eating part, we do get some questions about that. So periodical cicadas have long been a foodstuff for humans, in addition to other animals. There are native recipes going back, hundreds of years about how to cook them. They were collected and eaten by many of the indigenous people of this continent. Nowadays, they are used in cooking. Whenever this occurs, they become like this sort of fun summer sort of weird thing to do. Some people have tried to do beers with them, bake with them. I've eaten them a few different ways. When Brood X came out, I had this really strange opportunity. Some of you have probably heard me talk about it before, where this TV show came to the state, and it was called Wild Fed. And the guy's whole shtick is that he goes places and he like catches things and forages things, and then they cook them and eat them. And he came sort of towards the tail end of the cicada emergence. And I just got this random email that was like, "Hey, I need somebody to take me to the woods or to a park or something and catch all these cicadas with me. I was wondering if you would do." I was like, "Yeah, sure, strange man that I've never met before.
I'll go to the woods with you.
I'll go to a secondary location.
What's more metal than that?
Yeah, do you want to pick
Yeah,
me up
pretty
at
metal.
my house?
Yeah.
Like,
Pretty metal.
Do you want my schedule and a list of fears?"
you're such
Like-
a guy, John.
Here's my DMs. Jump out
Yes,
in.
true crime junkies are listening to this like this is just a series of errors on this guy's part.
Yeah.
So I met him in public at a park, Alexis. There were other people around.
I sent my location to somebody else beforehand.
I told people where I was going. And I really I showed up, and then there were these like camera people, and they followed us around. This guy's name is Daniel Vitalis. I don't know if the show is still on actually, but he was very metal. He had full sleeve tattoos, really kind of cool dude, sold supplements and stuff. Just an interesting dude. And yeah, we like wandered around and caught hundreds of cicadas. And I thought that was it. And then at the end, he was like, "Hey, do you want to come to the meal?" I was like, "Yeah, okay. I'll go to a tertiary location with you." I really thought this was just like we were going to start a fire at the park and like shish kebab them and cook them and eat them. But he was like, here's the invite, here's the location. And I drive out, and it was the Brown Foreman family farm, the people that own Woodford Reserve.
Oh.
And their personal chef had somehow gotten involved and had prepared the cicadas. And so luckily I had a emergency bug tie in my car, and I got dressed and went in.
As you should.
As I should. And we sat down and we drank bourbon and ate cicadas that had been prepared with tuna and rice. There was a few other ones that were kind of more locally sourced. The big one was they had taken all these mulberries and they had candied the cicadas and put them on top of homemade Kentucky ice cream.
It sounds like a lot of concealment to me. The concealment of the cicadas.
Right.
So we caramelized them, poured sugar on them,
We
set them
deep
on
fried
fire.
them and put some ranch on it, and they were delightful.
Yeah. I have had cicadas more
Suspicious.
plain than that. They're very nutty. They're all like a lot of things that feed on trees. They kind of have that tree flavor to them. We don't recommend eating them raw because it is just like shellfish in a way. There could be some bacteria there. we don't recommend if you have a shellfish allergy or a cockroach allergy that you eat cicadas.
How does one know if you have a cockroach allergy? I'm just, well, I guess you
if you eat one and you start swelling up.
Contact allergy.
If you get around household dust and you have cockroaches, usually this is more of an urban or suburban problem. Those people end up knowing that they have cockroach allergies.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then shellfish, that's through oral exposure, through eating it. There's a lot of cross allergy kind of talk there. And so if you eat cicadas, it's very likely that you will react to them if you have either of those allergies. Wash them and prepare them. You shouldn't eat like cicadas for 3 meals every day for a couple of weeks because they have been below ground for 17 years or 13 years. They do accumulate things that are in the soil, and that can include heavy metals in certain areas.
Metal
again.
So metal.
It's safe for pets to eat them. Dogs will scoop them up. Cats will play with them and eat them. And that's all very safe, just as long as they're not literally eating nothing but cicadas for 2 months. They will be fine.
I straight up had this vision of you as on the Lion King when Timon is grabbing these insects and like munching on them and like talking and flinging this beetle around. Yeah. That was you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
It's a compliment, but
and then I'm Timon, not Pumbaa. I think I remember that. In the
I just kind of imagined you talking about them while you're flinging one around. You just took a bite out of. Yeah.
Entomology is fun. It's an interesting field. People are turning crickets into powder and making mealworms into various things.
Is anybody making suckers out of these? I kind of want a cicada sucker now.
I've not seen a cicada sucker. I've seen
crickets,
big suckers.
Scorpions.
I don't know. Maybe they don't go through the candied process.
What I want to know is why FCS isn't on this with recipes, because I feel like they're really missing an opportunity.
I can make some guesses. I could just hazard some guesses here, but
Well, they're all trash.
I helped a FCS specialist, Heather Norman Bergdorf. She asked me to help her write some guidelines to cicada preparation.
Oh,
so they are putting some info out.
Good for them.
I think it's Trigg County. The ag agent and the FCS agent there are teaming up, and they're having, I think, a cicada cooking workshop. And the ag agent is being asked to harvest them. So there are some folks that are out there that are giving a shot. And I've prompted some of the FCS people that next year I would really like to put out like a cookbook or a cook infographic. I don't know how to phrase it, with some different recipes and try to promote some consumption
for the bourbon brood or the bluegrass brood or whatever you
haven't answered the question yet. Would you eat them again after your encounter with the candied cicadas?
Yeah, absolutely. I would eat cicadas again.
Okay. Yeah.
There's only one insect I've ever eaten that I wouldn't eat again, and it was live mealworms. I was at the Purdue Bug Bowl. And there was this guy, he would bring his insect collection every year. And I was a president of our entomology undergraduate club.
No pressure.
And he walked by, and I jokingly, we sell crickets in that organization to fund the club every year. We sell chocolate covered crickets. And I was like, oh, you don't want to eat one of our crickets, eh? And he got a wry look on his face, and he went and got a ketchup cup full of live mealworms, and he shot it in front of me and said that I had to do it too, and I was called out, so I did it.
It seems like a skit from Indiana Jones or something. I mean, that's straight out of
You would have what was the name of that show? Fear Factor. You would have won.
Yeah,
I believe it.
I see, but it's not even like I'm brave. It's just like, I don't
dared.
It was a double dog dare, so I was obligated through the ancient ritual edicts. Yeah, sure. Not good. I had no idea that this conversation was going in this direction, but I'm all about it. I am all about it. It was so interesting. I had no idea there were so many culinary veins that we could go down with cicadas. Fascinating.
One thing I wanted to maybe ask you toward the end here, you were talking about how originally it was, why is everyone so crazy and obsessed with this? And I really like the way that you talked about it as it's this cyclical, strange thing that's outside of our control. It's this natural phenomenon, much like the eclipse that happened a little while ago. Everybody was, going buck wild over the eclipse in a way that I was not expecting for some reason. Yeah. Are there other insect events like this, locally or global? I'm sure there are, but ones that come to mind or that you're aware of that typically kind of capture the imagination. It doesn't have to be the 13, 17 year spacing or anything like that, but just things that if you're a aspiring bughead and you're trying to look for more things after this is over.
I think the only thing that really compares here in the U.S. is the monarch migration. That sends people also into really gaga fits where they really want to see them coming through the area. It's not as spectacular as it once was. We have seen declines in the migratory populations with some effects down in Mexico where they overwinter. But I would say that's the one to me in the United States that similarly sort of sends people into shivers, and they love looking at them as they hang out in Mexico, or they love watching them fly through in the migratory pathways. Then you'd go to like another tier where I don't know if you've been down to Tennessee, but they have a huge firefly tourism industry there. They take you out into kind of semi-wild areas where the fireflies are really thick, and they have these synchronized emergences where the males come out and start to call to females down in the grass. And it's really, really spectacular. They sent out some time-lapse videos and things. And there's just the habitat down there, and kind of this little bit warmer nature of Tennessee means that they have these huge firefly groups that just come out. I almost said broods. But they have these big firefly flights that come out, and people pay and go and do a lot of firefly tourism there. Beyond that, here, I'd really have to start plumbing and thinking about it. Globally, I mean, you can go and watch the dung beetles of Egypt that move their dung ball across the desert in ways that the pharaohs once pondered. You can go and see the termite mounds of Africa, where you have the only insect that lives longer than these ones that we've been talking about, the termite queens there. They can live to be 20, 25 years old. And they have these huge chimneys that they live in. But they're not events. They're not like synchronized or as extraordinary, I think, as what we see with the periodical cicadas.
No big deal.
Yeah. That's why we need to get Kentucky brewed.
That's right, America.
And just like cicadas, if you drink 12 cicada beers, you too will scream. I mean, I can see a whole marketing thing coming together here. I mean, we could make this work, people.
Let's make it work for us. How do we get the orchards involved in this so that the cicadas work for them and not against them?
Cicada cider.
Part of me wants to do the bourbon brewed because then I want to work with one of the distilleries to make, to put it in the barrel.
Yeah.
And 17 years from now,
that's good.
Don't eat the cicada.
We may have to remove that. That's like a trade secret. That's like an angle, Jonathan. We may not want to give that up.
Patent pending.
Patent pending. Yeah, exactly. Patent applied for.
Nobody take it.
Yeah, that's good. I like it.
Well, we do have that whole, distilling thing at UK now that, right? You can get a degree in distilling or something like that. Wild times.
The James Beam Institute. We can't put the UK logo on pocket knives. That's dangerous. But
but on a liquor bottle, yes, absolutely.
Have you approached?
I'm sorry, that was a little political.
We have been talking about cicadas after all, so
people stopped listening a while ago. So
lies. No, this is all really good information, and hopefully will relieve some people of not panicking and
their biblical fears.
Biblical fears. That's a thing, and also new recipes. Honey, what's for dinner? So, I mean,
cicada sandwiches.
Yum. But also, don't get heavy metal poisoning from cicadas because that's going to be fun to explain to the doctor.
Listen to it on volume 10, and you will not get heavy metal poisoning.
Awesome. Well, I guess that sums it up. Jonathan, what is the name of your podcast in case people want to search out more of your awesome attitude?
We are Arthropod, Arthro-pod on all of your favorite podcatcher apps. It's an allusion to arthropods. I host it with my co-host Jody Green of the University of Nebraska and Michael Scavarla of Penn State. You can find us on pretty much every podcatcher app and Spotify. We are currently going through some malaria episodes. So in May, we're going to do malaria, not to make it a very serious topic, but we're talking about the history of malaria and the eradication program that was successful here in the United States. We've had some cicada content recently, so if people wanted to check us out, that'd be awesome.
Is there a special episode from malaria quinine?
We talk a lot about quinine. We talked about, like, why aren't we drinking G's and T's when we shoot this? It's like, oh, right, because it's professional and the dean's listening.
Right, we're at work. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like your podcast because you do talk more. It's not just about like this is a bug and this is how it like lives. Yeah, right. It's a little bit more of like the history of it and just some of these things that have really shaped a lot of society over the time. And the Alpha Gal episode particularly comes to mind and was really fascinating to me as someone who is suffering with that. So,
oh no, I didn't know that. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yay, not as bad. I learned that I actually have it really chill compared to a lot of people, so I'm not going to complain anymore. But
I always thought of you as an alpha gal, but I didn't.
I am
in
indeed
a different way now.
Have alpha gal rather than being an alpha gal.
Alpha gal. That should be like a shirt. I need a shirt.
We're all about this is a marketing podcast after all today.
I'm not sure what the name of this episode is going to be. It's going to be something like Cicadas the new metalhead, or it's going to be Cicadas TM. I don't know, but
TMI.
Anyways. So thank you.
Cicada Brood, but BREWED.
Ooh, coffee shop.
Umlauts?
Man, this is just gold.
Yes.
Just
Everyone's
gold.
like writing this down fervently. But anyways, be quiet. I'm gonna end this because people are ready to get off of here. And we thank you for being here with us today. Thank you, Dr. Larson, for being with us. It's always fun to have you on. If you all have any questions for Dr. Larson, we're going to put his email in the show notes, and you can also find our email in the show notes. If you're too scared to talk to somebody who is as famous as Dr. Larson is these days, you can always shoot us an email and we'll forward it on. But we promise he's easy to talk to. So we'll include that if you have any questions about insects, if you have plants, if you have info, if you want to hear more about fireflies, because I'm writing that down as something that would be really, to me, a cool topic, or as I like to call them, lightning bugs, because Kentucky.
Could be an illuminating topic.
Yeah. So yeah, pop versus soda, I feel like, is lightning bugs versus firefly here. So but anyways, if you want to hear more about that, leave us a comment, send us a message. You can also follow us on Instagram at Hort Culture Podcast. We would love to hear from you. Otherwise, you're just getting what these minds make up in here. So you're welcome. But we hope that as we grow this podcast, you will grow with us and that you will join us next time. Thanks, y'all.